Hey, what's up? We're live. Look at that. Would you just look at it? How's everybody doing? I'm Alex, that man. I am a recovering addict, 6 years, 4 months, and 14 days. 6 years, 4 months, and 2 weeks. Clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. I am also an entrepreneur, an investor, a businessman, and a lot of other things. I'm a lot of other things, not just that. Okay, that's not just what I am. Um, but I'm also a health coach. Yes, I'm a health coach. I know you look at me if you're new here and you're like, "How's this big guy a health coach?" Well, uh, I lost over 100 pounds, 110 pounds in the last 4 months. Um, and so I've learned a lot about health in those 4 months, and I have a few clients and things like that. And I'm helping other people along the way because um, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to need to get healthy, and that's what makes me a health coach. I put love into it. I put love into people. So if you're new here, take a moment. We're about to read from the 12 steps. We're about to read step 7. If you are in recovery, then awesome. If you're not, awesome still, because the 12 steps are not just for addicts. There are 12 spiritual principles that you can apply in your life to better the quality of your life so that you can live a happy and purposeful life. So, if you want to check out the previous steps, I'll show you what we've gone through already. We've gone through step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol or whatever issue you got, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2 was came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Yesterday, we covered step 6, which is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And today, we'll be doing my one of my favorite steps. They're all my favorite, but like seriously, this one really opened my eyes up to a lot of things that I misunderstood in the past. And step 7 is humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. And in this step, we'll be covering what is humility, what can it mean to us, the avenue to true freedom of the human spirit, necessary aid to survival, value of ego puncturing. Right? Everybody always talking about, oh, they got ego, you got an ego problem. Oh, this is where we find the value in ego puncturing. Failure and misery transformed by humility. All right. And we talk about strength from weakness. Pain is the admission price to new life. Self centered fear, chief activator of defects. Step 7 is change in attitude, which permits us to move out of ourselves toward God. All right. So, with that being said, let me say what's up to the people who are here already. We got Boatman. What's up, Boatman? He's saying what's up to Mookie. I don't see Mookie in the chat, so maybe she was here before I went live. What's up to Mookie too? We got Black Widow. What's up, Betty? Good to see you. We got Anna. All right, guys. So I'm gonna get into this again. This is gonna be a playlist I'm creating. If you want to go back and revisit any of the previous steps, you can. They're in this playlist. And as the days go by, I'll be reading a different step every day throughout the end of this month. By the end of this month, I would have read through all 12 steps. Okay. So if you ever want to revisit them, you can always come back, rewatch it. I read through the steps and sometimes I get passionate. I always tell myself, or I always say, I'm going to try to just read this time. It never happens because I relate to this so much, and these principles have literally changed my life. Okay. So I ask you to just keep an open mind. This, you could relate to this, and this could help you. You could get something out of this. So, with no further ado, is there anything else I need to say? Sunday nights, Bad Boys of no, bad just the Bad Boys live. And we do that 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's me and Oscar, and we tell stories and try to work things out about our own growth in finances and emotions and spirituality and all that good stuff. And then Fridays I do a show called Before and After Weight Loss. So now what? And that is me and 3 other coaches. All right. Jen, Adrian, Sarah, and myself. And we talk about health. And we actually, if you guys watched the show we did today, it was actually a pretty good one. And every week we're going to come with more information, more good times, telling stories and interacting with y'all. So definitely go check that out. What's up, Gumpa? How's it going, buddy? How's it going? All right. So no further ado, I'm going to jump right into this. All right. Step 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Since this step so specifically concerns itself with humility, we should pause here to consider what humility is and what the practice of it can mean to us. Indeed, the attainment of greater humility is the foundation principle of each of these 12 steps. For without some degree of humility, no person can stay sober at all. Nearly all of the people who have practiced this have found too that unless they develop much more of this precious quality than may be required just for sobriety, they still haven't much chance of becoming truly happy. Without it, they cannot live to much useful purpose or in adversity be able to summon the faith that can meet any emergency. Humility as a word and as an ideal has a very bad time of it in our world. Not only is the idea misunderstood, the word itself is often intensely disliked. Many people haven't even a nodding acquaintance with humility as a way of life. Much of the everyday talk we hear and a great deal of what we read highlights man's pride in his own achievements. Yo, I remember one time my uncle was like, "You need to be humble, man. You're not humble." And this was a long time ago. I was messed up back in the day. And what I thought humility was like bowing your head down, like shutting up and not, humility is a lot more than that. And that's what we're going to discover that here, and I'll touch more on that later. With great intelligence, men of science have been forcing nature to disclose her secrets. The immense resources now being harnessed promise such a quantity of material blessings that many have come to believe that a man-made millennium lies just ahead. Poverty will disappear, and there will be such abundance that everybody can have all the security and personal satisfactions he desires. The theory seems to be that once everybody's primary instincts are satisfied, there won't be much left to quarrel about. The world will then turn happy and be free to concentrate on culture and character. Solely by their own intelligence and labor, men will have shaped their own destiny. Certainly, no alcoholic and surely no member that practices these 12 steps wants to deprecate material achievement. Nor do we enter into debate with the many who still so passionately cling to the belief that to satisfy our basic natural desires is the main object of life. But we are sure that no class of people in the world ever made a worse mess of trying to live by this formula than alcoholics. For thousands of years, we have been demanding more than our share of security, prestige, and romance. When we seemed to be succeeding, we drank to dream still greater dreams. When we were frustrated, even in part, we drank for oblivion. Never was there enough of what we thought we wanted. In all these strivings, so many of them well intentioned, our crippling handicap had been our lack of humility. We had lacked the perspective to see the character building and spiritual values had to come first, and that material satisfactions were not the purpose of living. Quite characteristically, we had gone all out in confusing the ends with the means. Instead of regarding the satisfaction of our material desires as the means by which we could live and function as human beings, we had taken these satisfactions to be the final end and aim of life. I don't know if y'all hear me. What's up, man? That's my mom's. What's up, man? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. True, most of us thought good character was desirable. But obviously, good character was something one needed to get on with the business of being self-satisfied. With a proper display of honesty and morality, we'd stand a better chance of getting what we really wanted. But whenever we had to choose between character and comfort, the character building was lost in the dust of our chase after what we thought was happiness. Seldom did we look at character building as something desirable in itself, something we would like to strive for, whether our instinctual needs were met or not. We never thought of making honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the daily basis of living. This lack of anchorage to any permanent values, the blindness to the true purpose of our lives, produced another bad result. For just so long, for just so long as we were convinced that we could live exclusively by our own individual strength and intelligence, for just that long was a working faith in a higher power impossible. This was true even when we believed that God existed. We could actually have earnest religious beliefs which remained barren because we were still trying to play God ourselves. As long as we placed self reliance first, a genuine reliance upon a higher power was out of the question. That basic ingredient of all humility, a desire to seek and do God's will, was missing. For us, the process of gaining a new perspective was unbelievably painful. It was only by repeated humiliations that we were forced to learn something about humility. It was only at the end of a long road, marked by successive defeats and humiliations, and the final crushing of our self sufficiency, that we began to feel humility as something more than a condition of groveling despair. Every newcomer in this program is told and soon realizes for themselves that his humble admission of powerlessness over alcohol is his first step toward liberation from its paralyzing grip. So it is that we first see humility as a necessity, but this is the barest beginning. To get completely away from our aversion to the idea of being humble, to gain a vision of humility as the avenue to true freedom of the human spirit, to be willing to work for humility as something to be desired for itself, takes most of us a long, long time. A whole lifetime geared to self centeredness cannot be set in reverse all at once. Rebellion dogs are every step at first. When we have finally admitted without reservation that we are powerless over our problems, we are apt to breathe a great sigh of relief, saying, well, thank God that's over. I'll never have to go through that again. Then we learn, often to our constant consternation, that this is only the first milestone on the new road we are walking. Still goaded by sheer necessity, we reluctantly come to grips with those serious character flaws that made problem drinkers of us in the first place. Flaws which must be dealt with to prevent a retreat into alcoholism once again. We will want to be rid of some of these defects, but in some instances, this will appear to be an impossible job from which we recoil, and we cling with a passionate persistence to others which are just as disturbing to our equilibrium because we still enjoy them too much. How can we possibly summon the resolution and the willingness to get rid of such overwhelming compulsions and desires? But again, we are driven on by the inescapable conclusion which we draw from AA experience that we surely must try with a will or else fall by the wayside. At this stage of our progress, we are under heavy pressure and coercion to do the right thing. We are obliged to choose between the pains of trying and the certain penalties of failing to do so. These initial steps along the road are taken grudgingly, yet we do take them. We may still have no very high opinion of humility as a desirable personal virtue, but we do recognize it as a necessary aid to our survival. But when we have taken a square look at some of these defects, have discussed them with another, and have become willing to have them removed, our thinking about humility commences to have a wider meaning. What's up, Frank? For those of you who are watching, I don't pop up the names when I say hi to people. There's a chat. You can hit the little chat button right there, and you can watch the chat. There's people interacting right now. So just, yeah, you could go do that. Go say hi. Go say hi to people. We enjoy moments to which there is something like real peace of mind. To those of us who have hitherto known only excitement, depression, or anxiety, in other words, to all of us, this newfound peace is a priceless gift. Something new indeed has been added. Where humility had formerly stood for forced feeding on humble pie, it now begins to mean the nourishing ingredient which can give us serenity. Serenity. Woo! What's up, Susan? Good to see you. That's deep. That's deep. This improved perception of humility starts another revolutionary change in our outlook. Our eyes begin to open the immense values which have come straight out of painful ego puncturing. Until now, our lives have been largely devoted to running from pain and problems. We fled from them as from a plague. We never wanted to deal with the fact of suffering. Escape via the bottle was always our solution. Character building through suffering might be all right for saints, but it certainly didn't appeal to us. Then, in this program, we looked and we listened. Everywhere we saw failure and misery transformed by humility into priceless assets. We heard story after story of how humility had brought strength out of weakness. In every case, pain had been the price of admission into a new life. But this admission price had purchased more than we expected. It brought a measure of humility, which we soon discovered to be a healer of pain. We began to fear pain less and desire humility more than ever. Like, if y'all know my story, if y'all don't know my story, go look at my story, all right? Go watch one of the Bad Boys Live playlist on this channel, on this YouTube channel. Go watch the Bad Boys Live. And I relate to this because just 4 months ago, I celebrated, and I'll say this all the time. With humility, I'll say it. 4 months ago, I celebrated my 6-year clean and sober anniversary. I hadn't touched a drug or a drink in 6 years. I even had surgeries and didn't take pain narcotics. Okay? So 4 months ago, when I celebrated my anniversary, I realized I wasn't sober at all. I wasn't practicing my humility. I wasn't serene. I didn't have serenity in my life. I was 460 plus pounds. I was extremely unhealthy, and I was on the verge of dying. And the humility was when I said, I need to tell somebody. So instead of just telling one person, which I've told before, I chose to tell everyone who could possibly see me. And I shared my heart on my Facebook page, which you can also go follow. The links are in my description. But I shared it there on February 11th. And I said everything that I was thinking, feeling, and how I was acting, and why I got to the point I got to, and where I want to be. I was humble enough and willing enough to change my life. But if it wasn't for a little bit of humility, right now we would not be having this video going on. I would not be reading out of these 12 steps. Who knows where I would be? I could have been underground by now, but I'm not, thankfully. But humility is a big deal. And that's why step 7 is one of my biggest steps. And whenever somebody shares that they're struggling with something, I always mention to them humility. I always mention to them expressing how they really feel. Because there's a difference between saying what's on your mind and being honest. Right? And this was told to me by a friend of mine a few years ago. And it stuck with me. There's a difference between speaking your mind and being fully honest. And the concept is to be fully honest, not just speak your mind. And be honest with yourself, right? And say how you really feel. Say what you really think, and say how you really are. And by doing that, you discover yourself, your real self. And you're able to look at yourself and be like, I see what I need to work on. And I see also the good in me. So why not use a little bit more of my goodness now that I know I have it, and work on being a little less of that bad side of me, right? Humility is huge. It can change your life, and anyone can practice it at any time. Anyone. Where there's humility, there's no fear. You understand that? You know, when you're afraid, you know, when you're really, really afraid, and I'm not talking about like if there's a lion in front of you and you're about to die because he's gonna eat you, like that's fear. Like you need that, right? But with humility, you can overcome all your fears, all of them. During this process, hey, Broken Arrow, what's up? Good to see you. Good to see you. Lisa, what's up? All right. So, during this process of learning more about humility, the most profound result of all was the change in our attitude toward God. And this was true whether we had been deliverers or, believers or unbelievers. We began to get over the idea that the higher power was a sort of Bush League pinch hitter to be called upon only in an emergency. The notion that we would still live our own lives, God helping a little now and then, began to evaporate. Many of us who had thought ourselves religious awoke to the limitations of this attitude. Refusing to place God first, we had deprived ourselves of his help. But now the words, "Of myself I am nothing, the Father doeth the work," began to carry bright promise and meaning. We saw we needn't always be bludgeoned and beaten into humility. All right. You don't have to be humiliated. You don't have to be forced to be humble anymore. That's what it's saying. Because now you're seeking humility. Now you're humbly accepting humility. This is why it's very easy for me, as an example, to tell people that I am a drug addict in recovery. I have no shame when I say that. I don't feel less than, I don't feel greater than anyone. I feel free when I say it. I have peace when I say it. It brings me joy to say it. Humility, y'all. It could come quite as much from our voluntary reaching for it as it could from unremitting suffering. A great turning point in our lives came when we sought for humility as something we really wanted rather than as something we must have. It marked the time when we could commence to see the full implication of step 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. We're almost done. Last page, y'all. Last page. This one's a quick one. And it's one of the most powerful ones. It's so quick, but it's so powerful. As we approach the actual taking of step 7, it might be well if the members of this program inquire once more just what our deeper objectives are. Each of us would like to live at peace with himself and with his fellows. We would like to be assured that the grace of God can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. We have seen that character defects based upon short-sighted or unworthy desires are the obstacles that block our path toward these objectives. We now clearly see that we have been making unreasonable demands upon ourselves, upon others, and upon God. The chief activator of our defects has been self-centered fear, primarily fear that we would lose something we already possessed or would fail to get something we demanded. Living upon a basis of unsatisfied demands, we were in a state of continual disturbance and frustration. Therefore, no peace was to be had unless we could find a means of reducing these demands. The difference between a demand and a simple request is plain to anyone. The 7th step is where we make the change in our attitude, which permits us, with humility as our guide, to move out from ourselves toward others and toward God. The whole emphasis of step 7 is on humility. It is really saying to us that we now ought to be willing to try humility in seeking the removal of our other shortcomings, just as we did when we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Y'all get that? This program, we're now halfway through these principles. We got you this far, and at this point, we're letting you know alcohol was not the problem. Drugs is not the problem. Food is not the problem. Work is not the problem. Exercising too much is not the problem. That is not the problem. There's a lot of other things that you're going to work on now, because those things are the problem. You, inside you have good and you have bad. We're going to work on those things, because those things are what cause the side effects of alcoholism, the side effects of domestic abuse, the side effects of overworking, overeating. Those are all side effects. But now that you understand yourself a little bit, now that we're here at the halfway point, we're going to start talking about all these other things that really led you to those other issues. Because ultimately, we all suffer from the same disease. It's called the human disease, right? Like, I don't know. I've heard that somewhere and I like it. So I'm just going to stick with it, because we're all human and we all possess these things. We possess the good. We possess the bad. Do we know what we possess the most of? Do we know what controls our life the most? What guides us? What gives us that moment that makes us have a decision to make, right? And we act upon this way or that way, right? It is really saying to us that we now ought to be willing to try humility in seeking the removal of our other shortcomings, just as we did when we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. If that degree of humility could enable us to find the grace by which such a deadly obsession could be banished, then there must be hope of the same result respecting any other problem we could possibly have. That's in here. Okay? That was step 7. And that was a quick one. All right? The human condition. There you go. You see, there you go. You know what I'm talking about. The human condition. Human disease. You know what I mean? Yeah, very much, very much. So that was step 7. As I said in the beginning of this, steps 1 through 6 are already on a playlist. You can go back and revisit them at any time. The 12 steps is not something that you read once or you understand once and you just live the rest of your life perfectly fine. The 12 steps are principles, spiritual principles that are meant to be practiced consistently and for the rest of your life. If you're able to, you can assure yourself that you're going to have a life full of happiness, a life with purpose. You're going to discover purpose. You're going to discover fulfillment. You're going to discover happiness, joy. You're going to discover love, freedom, peace, courage, strength. You're going to discover so much things: compassion, comprehension, empathy. You'll discover so many things that you'll be able to practice more of instead of allowing the opposite of those things to take over. Because unfortunately, we live in a world where the opposite of those things is almost normal. It is normal to live in a manageable life. It is normal and considered perfectly okay to go to a McDonald's drive-thru. It is normal and considered perfectly okay to, instead of work 40 hours a week, have to work 80 hours a week because your boss is on vacation and You're not able to spend time with your family, which should be your priority. There's a lot of things that these principles, when applied, will improve in your life. A lot of things. So I invite you to tune in again every day until the end of June. We're in June 25th. We have until the 30th. So we have 5 more steps to go, 5 more days. And I'll keep reading through it. I'll keep sharing my experiences with it. And I'll keep y'all in my prayers and all the good stuff. So if you know somebody that could benefit from this, please share it with them. Share it with them. Invite them to come over, subscribe, follow me, because that's what I'm doing with my life from here on out. What I'm doing with my life from here on out is giving myself to serve others. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So, with that said, next Friday, it'll be me, Jen, Adrian, and Sarah, 4 health coaches talking about health and wellness, talking about weight loss, talking about, prosperity, all the good stuff that comes with living a healthy life. Um, this Sunday night, and every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, Bad Boys Live, where we tell your truth through ours, sharing what we've overcome to help lead you towards financial, emotional, and spiritual freedom. And as always, I love y'all. Don't forget, you can be bad and still be good. So be good or be good at it. Till next time, peace, money, love.